Welcome to the Rise of the Challenge podcast. Join me today. He's a former MLS soccer player, an entrepreneur and investor, the co-founder of Soccer Resilience, and a podcast host. It's Wells Thompson. How are you doing today, Wells?
Doing great, Alex, man. Good to be here, brother.
Thank you for joining me. I truly have enjoyed your podcast, listening to all the episodes.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I thought it was just my mom that listened to it, actually. Glad to know somebody else out there is listening to it.
I'm a person that I love learning, so when I found that you had one, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to support it any way I can. And I truly enjoyed, and I'm excited that we have this opportunity to share your journey with all the listeners today.
Yeah, well, thanks, man. I mean, there's so much information and so much stuff out there that, I mean, even if they're my close friends, like I totally understand. There's a lot of people to listen to, and probably a lot of people that are smarter and know a little bit more than I do. But I mean, honestly, I'm humbled. I appreciate you saying that. And if you do listen, I listened to your last podcast too with his name, the Australian guy.
Oh, Adrian Lee.
I bet you got a lot of listeners because he was Australian. I enjoyed just hearing him, and great guy. If he's listening, great guy. I actually really took away a lot of stuff and just helped me with my perspective, man. It was a good episode.
Thank you for listening to it. That's my job. I love what I do, and we're ready to get this going. So what we do is we start right at the beginning. Talk about where you were from and what were you involved in growing up as a child?
Yeah, I'm from North Carolina. I'm a middle child, so I'm really jacked up. I've got an older brother who's a year and a half older than me and a younger sister. And so, as a former pro athlete, I'm always looking back and kind of reflecting on, what made me who I was and how did I get to where I got to and those sorts of things. And I think that my brother played a really pivotal role in me becoming who I was. Like a typical day, he was very athletic. And so at 5, he started playing soccer, and then my parents signed me up. So I was like 4. And I asked my parents actually recently, like, could they tell as soon as I touched the soccer ball that something was different about me? And they said yes. Which is kind of cool to hear. But so my brother was a great athlete, and so I was, I think kind of normal little brother. Like I just looked up to him a whole lot. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to wear his clothes, and I wanted to hang out with him and his friends and that sort of thing. And so we were fairly close and competed a lot as kids. And, a typical day would look like this. We would play basketball or ping pong or pool or some kind of sport. He would beat me. I'd get mad, chuck the ball at him. I didn't chuck pool balls at him, but like the basketball, and he would beat me up and I'd go run cry to mom. But I look back on those, that time in my life as such a teacher. Like I learned a lot about myself, about life. And if you watch my soccer game, you could probably see like, I just got a no quit mentality, and, I hated to lose. And so it didn't matter what I was competing in. I was there to win, man. And I was going to kick your butt along the way. And if you were going to beat me, it wasn't going to be fun. And so, man, I think that there's a lot of factors that come into place when it comes to how did you get to where you got to, Wells, as a pro athlete, luck, grace of God, family. And I got great family. I got great parents, that just gave me everything and provided me with a lot of opportunities. So I have, Alex, headed a lot of soccer balls, and we'll probably get to this point, but done a lot of drugs as a kid. So I tend to have squirrels, and I'm all over the place. So if you need to just interject, man, and reorient me, please feel free to go ahead and do that.
No, it's all good.
But I love sports as a kid, and so I played everything: basketball, baseball. We were talking before we got on air here. Ice hockey. I played ice hockey as a kid, and but soccer was really like my true passion. What I feel like God gave me a gift for and blessed me with. It was probably my greatest sport. Like I excelled the most in soccer. So just continued to chase that as long as I could, man.
When you were getting into soccer, was there any players that you kind of looked up to that were inspired by? Like, I wanted to be like this athlete, or kind of like your brother was that inspiration for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. My brother was probably that inspiration, but soccer wasn't big when I was growing up. So 83, the league, MLS league right now has been around for 30 years, something like that. So not long. And I've learned this about myself, Alex, and I think it was true back in the day, is that I'm an athlete, not a spectator. And I don't say that in any sort of connotation, but like I don't like, the only sport I watch, Alex, now is MMA. I love MMA, man. I love watching Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker just freaking battle. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. But and obviously I watch soccer as a playing and I studied it and I followed some guys. But when I was a younger kid, man, I didn't watch it. I really didn't watch sports. I loved to play them. I was active. I loved to get after it, but I didn't have, again, I think part of that was it wasn't on TV. I mean, like you couldn't find an MLS game. There was MLS, right? And you couldn't find the American stations weren't playing the games in Europe. They'd have like a 30-minute highlight session. So my brother was just someone who I always wanted to kind of be and emulate and look up to. And so he definitely pushed me to be a better player for sure.
And as you said, like you didn't watch MLS when you were younger or wasn't big at the time. I was not I played soccer, but I never watched soccer. Until like a few years ago where I started getting into the Premier League and watching that. And I'm like,
who's your team?
I don't have a team. Like, it's kind of like I started, like, people are like, oh, you're just going to say the best one. I go, I couldn't tell you who the best
one is. So you're like one of those guys that likes players. You like certain players?
Yeah. I'm all about with teams. If it's a good game, that's all I care about. I want to be, like, loud. Like, if this game's boring, okay, now I'm going to change the channel. But I will say, with the MLS having its tournament, every night I've been watching, like, from like 7 p.m. to like midnight. And it's amazing. Like the amount that they put into these tournaments to get sports out there and during this time. And it's just been enjoyable. But as you said, being an athlete and not a spectator, I was a person that I always just wanted to be on the field. I hated watching people do it.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Was soccer as a younger kid always going to be that passion when you were growing up, or you kind of just, I'm doing it for right now, who knows what's going to happen?
No, I was all in, man. I love soccer. I love playing. I love competing. I've got three young kids now, so I'm always trying to psychologically like evaluate them and see like, okay, is he going to be good? Does he have it? And I think that's a very fixed mindset. Like you either have it or you don't. I think that I don't think that is true. I think, we need to have a growth mindset in whatever we do. And that's if we put the practice in and we prepare and have a plan, like we can get better. Right. And so, I love playing. I love competing. And so it really dominated my life. I mean, my parents drove us all over the state, the region, the country to play sports. And it's what I loved. It's when I really felt like I came alive. I mean, soccer's given me so much. Talk about rise to the challenge. Like, so I love soccer. When I got into middle school, high school-ish, middle school is probably when it started. I'm a middle child. And so like, I try to dissect that too, but I'm always getting into things. I wanted to grow up too fast. And so I really got into drugs and alcohol at an early age. And man, by the grace of God, like just, I could have derailed my whole life. I mean, I honestly tell people that like, if my parents didn't intervene, I would be dead now or be in prison for a long time. I mean, I was just an idiot. And every time I tell my story, I shake my head because it's like, what, like I really wanted to be known for the kid that did the most drugs and drank the most alcohol. Like it's the stupidest thing in the world, right? Like, but that's how I lived my life. I thought that was cool. I wanted to fit in. I don't really know, but like you tell me, but so my parents, I wasn't living at home. They tricked me to come home, and I got picked up in the middle of the night by two strangers, and they handcuffed me and drove me 12 hours up to the middle of the Catskill Mountains in New York. And so I spent a year and a half there. I was 16 years old, 16 and a half until 18. And so, man, I didn't hate every day, but I hated most days I was there. But the older I get, I'm so thankful, man. It's one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. And so I'm 36 now and hopefully have a little bit of maturity. I'm definitely a man that's young at heart. And so, but man, I really appreciate and am grateful that my family and my parents had the resources and gave me that blessing. like they get that, and that kidnapping became a blessing, because I know that there's a lot of people, man, that don't have those resources. And so when their kids get out of control, what do? Right? They can't really do much. And so, I know that I went through that time for a reason, and it wasn't just for myself, it was to help other people out. But I'm a slow learner, Alex, really slow. And so when I got out of that school after a year and a half, I got back into drugs and alcohol. And so my whole story is somewhat of an underdog story. Like, the Olympic development team, ODP, is like your state teams, and ODP is like what you get into as a youth if you excel. And so I remember as a kid, like I tried out and I never made it. But my parents told me I made the conscious decision to continue to try out each and every year. It's kind of one of those things, like people would come up after games to my dad and be like, "How is your son not on the state team?" And so I don't know, whatever reason, I just didn't make it. But I look back on this times, this challenging times for sure in my life, as blessings, because I believe that God uses them for our good and His glory. And ultimately, I see how they played out and were fruitful in my career and life afterward. And so, as you can imagine, no one was recruiting at the school that I went to up in New York. I just call it dumbass school. If that's a bad word for kids listening, I apologize. But like, I was just an idiot. So we call it idiot school. So I wasn't being recruited, right? So I came home. I repeated my senior year. I grew up 5 minutes from Wake Forest University, which, if you know anything about college soccer, they're perennial top 5 powerhouse and have been for the last 15 years, 20 years. And so I was a walk-on. They recruited me as a walk-on. And so they told me, fast forward 4 years, when I got drafted 5th overall, they told me they thought I would never play a day at Wake Forest. And so, yeah, it's cool, man. I ended up playing as a freshman some, as a sophomore some. And then my junior year is really when I just kind of excelled and took off and came into my own sort of thing. So definitely an underdog guy. I believe in chasing your dreams and going after them. And because I don't know, I love this thing. I don't know if you ever heard it from Matthew McConaughey. He talks about unbelievable. It's the stupidest word in the English dictionary. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube it, man. It's awesome. If you're listening to this, YouTube it, because, why is it the stupidest word in the English dictionary? Is because we should believe it, because people continue to defy the odds over and over again. And so I love this sort of thing, and speaking to people and just inspiring them, because, honestly, I've done everything in my life to screw up my life. And for whatever reason, I am where I am. And so I try to use that to give back.
You talked about growing up too fast. And during that time with the drugs and alcohol, were you with the wrong type of people during that time? Or was it your mind was going crazy during those moments and you're like, I don't care what's happening, just I want to be in this lifestyle?
Yeah. I mean, my parents would tell you I was with the wrong people, but, I could make decisions for myself. My best friend had older siblings, and like 5 years older. And so when we were 13, 14, they were 18, 19, whatever, getting into stuff, right? And so we just kind of followed along, and, they supplied us stuff. And so that one thing led to another. And I was like, oh, this is really horrible. Why am I drinking this beer? Right. Like, and then you're like, oh, they're like cheering you on. So it's cool. And you try to fit in and stuff. And, I think that, you don't know, man, like our brains, you figure out later, like our brains aren't fully developed till we're like 27 as men. And so I look back and I'm like, yeah, I didn't get it. I'm such an idiot. Thank God that I didn't kill myself or kill somebody else in the process. But I think you have no sense of the future. So you're basically just living for the moment, and you don't know who you are. So you're trying to fit in. And look, these are all still somewhat of things that I go through today. And I believe that we all go through, but thankfully I use my brain a little bit more. I have a little more sense of myself and that sort of thing. So, it's a lot. I actually still keep in touch with a lot of those guys that I used to party with and stuff, and God's done a lot of great things in their life. And so, yeah, I mean, it was me. I just made those decisions, and they were wrong decisions, but I've learned from them. And so
I think it's one of those things, like learning. I mean, we can't keep holding the past against us every day. We kind of have to say, it happened, I've learned from it, and I'm able to overcome and learn more about yourself, basically. So when you were going through the time when you were taken away, what was your mindset? Were you worried that I don't know when it's going to be my last day, or I just need to put my trust in these people that they're going to take care of me to basically keep the time going until my parents found me.
Yeah, and I didn't talk to my parents for a month, so no contact, and they do that purposefully. And so there was no way. I didn't believe there was any way my parents would keep me there. I mean, it was, but they did. And I'm so thankful that they did. They came up. I probably saw them after 3 months. Maybe they came up, and I cried and I begged and I pleaded that they would take me out. I think I realized then that they were serious. And so, I kid myself often to say that I'm a little bit of a slow learner, but I knew at that point, I was like, I knew what I needed to do to get by. Mm-hmm. So I looked back, and I'm actually probably just connecting these dots right now. I'm like, that was a very smart decision, Wells, because I could have just acted it out and tried to get out of there, but that would have just ended up in a whole lot more crap and probably would have delayed my time to get out of there. I mean, the minimum stay was 18 months. And so I basically stayed minimum stay. I just learned quick that, like, if I listen and follow the rules and don't act like an idiot, I'll probably get out of here faster. And so I'm thankful that I did make that decision.
What was your dream job that you wanted to be? Was it going to be a soccer player, or was it something else?
As a kid, I'm very live in the moment, man. Very, I don't know if I had a dream job, but, I've always kind of said soccer. And I think that that's probably the truth. Just loving the game, playing, it's what kid doesn't kind of dream up and be like, I want to be a pro athlete. And so I think I was kind of that kid. And yeah, man, I'm thankful that I was able to live out that dream, because I didn't think it would ever happen. I mean, playing in college soccer was a dream, and that happened. And then, even at Wake Forest, so we're, top 5 in the nation pretty much every year. And we're getting the best of the best, right? Like the McDonald's, Gatorade Players of the Years, the guys that are like captain USU's national teams. And here I am, like, I never made a state team. And so, but I look back on my time and my tribulation and going through the stuff with my brother and being cut from the state team. I knew what it was like. And so I knew, like, I always believed in myself. And so you talk about mindset. I think that was like one of my greatest assets. I had failed, and I knew what it was like to fail. And I knew what it was like to get back up and to go after it again. I knew what it was like to, like, believe in myself when no one believed in me. And so all those things prepared me for going to Wake Forest. And I mean, it was, you would see it at Wake. There would be these guys that captained the U.S. youth national teams, and they would come in and they would really struggle. And some of them would never, they would never, like, really get it back, so to speak, like, air quotes, like it would just be a struggle for them. And so, I'm thankful for the struggles that I went through as a kid and that sort of thing. But even at Wake, I was playing with 2-time All-Americans, and I was never an All-American. I made All-ACC team my freshman year, and then my senior year I made, like, the All-ACC tournament team. But this is a cool story. 2 weeks before the draft, we had lost in the Final Four my senior year. It was the first time Wake had ever been in the Final Four. We lost in PKs. We crushed Santa Barbara, outshot them 18-7. Anyway, they ended up winning the national championship. My good buddy Brian Byrne played for them and has my ring. I always remind him of that. But so we lost, and so you're like, what do you do now? And I was like, I don't even know what I thought, man. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Hopefully I'm going to go pro, right, or get invited to the combine. I was invited to the combine, thankfully. Well, the draft comes around, and my coach, Davidovich, calls me in his office, and he says, you need to fly to Indianapolis. That's where the draft was that year. So, some coaches like you. And I'm like, really? I need to go up there? Okay. He's like, yeah, you got to go, man. So me and my mom and dad flew up. And if you're a first-round draft pick, like, the MLS is going to fly you up and take care of you. Well, come draft time, they have, like, a section in this big conference room cordoned off for the players and their parents. I was up there with one of my best friends, Ryan Solly, who was a 2-time All-American at Wake. And so my dad, like, they open it up. My dad books it to the front row. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, I'm going to sit there and not get picked, right? I don't blame him. I would have done the same thing. He just wanted the best seat in the house. So it was me, my mom and dad, Ryan Solly, who's the 2-time All-American, was captain at Wake, and his family. And so I knew that New England liked me, and they traded up for the 5th pick. And so if you know anything about soccer, New England's previous picks were Clint Dempsey, Michael Parkhurst, like Hall of Famers, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, there's no way that they're going to take me. Well, they come around to the pick, and they go a midfielder. Me and Ryan Soller are midfielders from Wake Forest. Me and Ryan Soller obviously played at Wake Forest. And Ryan told me after that he started to stand up at that point. But they called my name. And so it was like, man, the dream come true. I stand up, hug my family, hug Ryan, his family, and just try not to trip walking up the stairs and shaking the commissioner's hand. And, you know, that was really like, I'd been an underdog my whole life. And then I was a fifth pick in the first round. And it was a different story. It was a different animal. But that kind of set off my pro career, man. Went up to New England for 3 years. We lost the first year in the MLS Cup, had a really good year. Struggled the second year with some injuries. Third year was okay. And then I was traded to Colorado, where we won an MLS Cup in 2010. So
I love the underdog story that you're talking about. As
everybody does, man. Isn't it awesome?
I always say I always call myself a wild card. Like, you never know what you're gonna get out of me, but when I get on the field, that's when it all happens. I call myself the inner gladiator in me. And
Cool.
It shows people that just because you're not very recognized or you're low thought doesn't mean that a team doesn't notice you or someone. Obviously, when your friend was standing up and then it ended up being you, it's kind of like that psych out moment when, like, a game show or something where, oh, nope, I think I won, but nope. Or it's even like when you said that you watch MMA. The people are raising their hand because they're like, oh, I totally won. But then when you get those judges' scorecard, the other person. So it's kind of awesome that a lot of people can relate to your story where they weren't maybe noticed as much, but it was the passion you had. And I had a kind of a series talking about self-confidence in a way where you have to go through those struggles to build that confidence up and be able to say, I can do this and I'm going to do this. And you're going to have that mindset to reach where you want to go.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, I think that one thing I'm very careful of when I tell my story is to ever create the illusion that I did this. Like, I did this myself, right? Like, I'm an underdog. I beat the odds, like, by myself. And you talk about, like, where I grew up. Like, my parents, man. My parents did – I mean, think back, and I've seen it, right? I see parents that push their kids over the edge, and they hate the game because they're pushing them so much. And so, as parents, yes, it's like a coach, right? We want to push our kids to get the best out of them, to see that they're more capable than they give themselves credit for. But, like, my parents loved me regardless. It didn't matter how good or how bad I was. Like, after the game, it was like, did you have fun? Did you work hard? Yes. Let's go get ice cream, right? And it didn't matter if I sucked or if I was the best player on the field. Like, they loved me and they made me feel that way. And I think that's how parents should be. So, I mean, just the fact that I have two parents is such a blessing. But then I go to my brother, and then I go to, like, the amazing coaches and mentors that were in my life. I mean, we're all like a culmination of our environment, our experiences, the people in our lives. And so, man, I'm just like, God just put a whole lot of really awesome people in my life, really awesome coaches that believed in me. And I mean, you said it, Alex, right? It takes one person, right? It takes one person to believe in you. And I came to find out that there were a lot of people, but like Bobby Muse, the assistant coach at Wake Forest, and Paul Forrester, like, they actually had to convince our head coach, Jay Vidovich, to bring me on because he didn't see value in me like they did. And he ended up seeing it later on, but man, where would I be without those guys? And then I went into Wake and I just busted it. I worked hard. And that's one thing that I really tried to do. And it's really funny, man. People always talk about hard work and, if you're working hard or if you're working harder than everybody else and if you can give more. And every time I stepped on that field, I was a competitor. And so Bobby would go after practice to Jay and be like, dude, you got to play Wells. You got to play Wells. But anyway, my point there is not to talk about me, but to talk about all the awesome people in my life. And then I go to pro and I met some awesome people, and not even just from an athletic perspective, but from a spiritual, from a human to human perspective, like my teachers in school. And it's really easy, man, to fall into that mindset of, I did this. I even kind of thought it, like, I'm glad I actually remembered to say this, because sometimes you're like, yeah, I did this. I beat the odds. I'm the man, whatever. And man, it's so untrue. I mean, I always say there's probably a lot of people that were way better than me at soccer. They just didn't get the chance, or they weren't born in the right country, or they didn't, whatever. And so, it's really funny, Alex, because most pro athletes don't retire on their own. And I certainly wasn't one of them. I mean, I played 9 years and I had a good run, and I'm more happy today than I've ever been in my life. But if you asked me a couple years ago, but there's still I still struggle with, oftentimes I look back at my career and I'm like, you're a failure. You're a failure, man. And so that's one thing I noticed about myself. It never fulfilled me. And I looked for that fulfillment in the game. And so it was like, when I get to college, it's like, I just want to play. Well, when I play, I just want to start. And then when I start, I just want to be an all-star. Right. And then when I'm all-star, I want to captain the team. And then it's like going to pros, the same thing, get first round draft pick. Right. I go to the MLS Cup my first year, win the MLS Cup my third or fourth year, win the US Open Cup my first year, and do all these things, right? And then so how is it that you can look back and because you want more, you wish you could have done more, sort of thing. And that's life, man. You're living, you're learning. Hindsight's 20/20. And but yeah, I often wish I could go back and play. You know what I mean? Slide tackles.
You never know nowadays.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but I'm thankful for my career. So
you kind of mentioned on it, it's kind of like when people have goals and they accomplish it, they never know what's next for them. And I think if you have a goal that can also have a further distance you can go, that makes it better. So if you won the MLS Cup, okay, now I want to be a 2-time repeater. And then, maybe I want to be an all-star again. So it's always good to have those multiple goals and set goals that you can increase over time. When you were drafted, after you were drafted, your rookie season, did you kind of have some doubt, maybe is this for me, or am I going to last after one season? What kind of thoughts were going in through your head?
Yeah, man, I knew it was for me. I was trying to capitalize as much as possible. I was excited and just in shock almost, man. And, I always tell kids, and I think they probably experience this for themselves, but with each jump up in level, there's always doubt. And I think we're always struggling with doubt with ourselves, and we're fighting that battle. And so there was doubt, but then I quickly realized that, wait, I think I can hang here, man. And then as a matter of fact, I'm probably better than a lot of these guys. And so, yeah, I mean, you talk about the transition. So basically live in Winston-Salem my whole life, except for that time I was in New York. And so going from the South to the North, it was a complete transition. It was a complete, it was just different. I hadn't really experienced it too much. And so, to be in the limelight and, obviously there's a lot of things that I'd do differently when I go back, but man, I was excited for it. New England was an awesome team. I mean, they had been to the finals the past 2 years. So we lost in the finals that year, and that was the third year in a row they'd been in the finals. It was actually the fourth year of the past 6 years they lost in the finals. So we would walk around, people call us the Bills. It sucked in Boston because you're up there with the Celtics and the Bruins and the Patriots. They're all winning. So we're the redheaded stepchild. But yeah, I mean, it was really cool. Met some awesome people. Got to play with some great people. And people ask me all the time, what do you take away from soccer? What's and I think they still constantly think surely he's going to say the MLS championship. So I mean, I've done some really cool things, and I don't want to sound like a prick here, like I'm ungrateful that I won the MLS Cup championship or was drafted or won a US Open Cup or Superliga, but those aren't the things I hold on to. It's the people, it's traveling, seeing the world. Soccer has really just opened up my eyes and my perspective and given me so much in that sense. And I'm actually just kind of starting to realize that more and more as I speak. I mean, my first 2 years in the league, 2007, 2008, in the off seasons, I went to Africa. I've played in prisons in Chile, been to Congo, been Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras. I mean, we were in Honduras playing for CONCACAF Champions League with Colorado, and barbed wire surrounding the field, and they have armed guards around, and you're this is the beautiful game, man. And you're starting to see that in America. I don't know if you've seen a game in Atlanta or Seattle or Toronto or something like that, but I mean, it's life or death. It's religion for them. And so they're throwing bags of piss at you, and that's not cool, but it's cool that they take it to that extreme, kind of. but it was a great experience, you know? And so I look back on my career, my life, and I'm like, I don't know if I ever would have left Winston-Salem, man. I don't know if I ever would have left North Carolina, and I would be a much different person if I hadn't.
It's kind of think you took more of the stuff that impacted your life, like the stuff like the viewpoints, traveling, going to those other countries that is different than the United States, and you kind of just took it in and took in the moment. Then I won a championship, and that's all. That's all I care about. I kind of can go through that. College, the people that I made friendships with and the networking that I've gotten out of it was more impactful than me winning fraternity man of the year at my college. Yeah, it's a title, but I don't want to just be known for that. Like, because sometimes it gives off a bad vibe. I want to be known for a guy that went out and did a lot of charity work, made an impact in people's lives and all of
Yeah.
that.
Good for you,
That's
man.
what feels good to me. And it's nice to hear that. I mean, yes, you're proud that you won that title, but the other stuff, the meaning of the impact of your team going to those other countries, it kind of shows the softer side of athletes, the kind of the personal area that they have where they want to do whatever they can, whatever the teams ask for. And one of the things that I saw on LinkedIn that you were the humanitarian award winner. That kind of was like, that's awesome to hear because it shows how much you care. Just from speaking to you right now, you care about people.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, I think, you know, look, Alex, I am one extremely screwed up individual. And I want people to know that because I think that, you know, there's, for me, I don't know what you believe, but there's God and then there's all of us, right? The foot of the cross is level and we're all the same, man. And we all struggle. And I think a lot of times people look at, if they don't know any better, they look at pro athletes and say humanitarian of the year or whatever, he's serving, he's giving. But they don't know that, like, I'm still struggling, man. I'm still trying to figure life out. I'm still got a lot of things that I'm dealing with. And, you know, I think too, Alex, is just maturity. I mean, you get older, you grow, and hopefully you start to understand that, like, I mean, the greatest teacher in the world said it, right? It's better to give than to receive. And, you know, like, but that's hard to do, man, because we're so selfish and we're so self-centered. And it's like, and I think that's why I could look back on my career and be like, it's a failure because I'm selfish. And I'm like, I didn't do all the things that I wanted to do. And so I think it's a battle. I think that, like, it's really easy to get on a podcast and say things and do things. And so, like, for example, one of the things that I'm learning is, like, life's about relationships. And so I've said that my whole life, man. But, like, living that out is a different story. So life is about relationships. If someone calls me and needs to talk to me, like, am I going to pick that up or am I going to do my to-do list? Right? Like, what's more important? And yes, certainly there's times where you can call them back and, you know, people shouldn't have complete free access to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, for me personally, I've been really trying to live that out in my life and plug into people. And I think because as a pro athlete, a lot of the time I was so consumed with me and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. And so you realize at the end of the day, like, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm not going to ask them for my championship ring. I'm not going to, like, no one knew a week after I won the championship that I won the championship. And you're like, you expect, like, you know, I'm going to walk around and everyone's going to be like, oh, guy, MLS co-champion, like, first round draft pick. Like, no one knows that anymore, man. And so at the end of the day, it's like, what are we living for? And you start to question what's the purpose of life and blah, blah, blah. And then you start to realize that, like, when you connect with people, when you give and when you love, you're like, oh, that feels good. Like, it's different. It's good though. And so I hope, you know, that's the goal, right? Is to do more of that and to fight against the, like, I want all this stuff for myself. I don't know if that made any sense, man, but.
Well, I think a lot, and the one thing that I love about doing this show is everyone has a story. Some of us may not know that individual story. We can go to your Wikipedia page and read a bunch of stuff. It may not tell us everything.
Yeah, don't believe everything you read on there, man.
I mean, you shouldn't believe everything that's on there. But it's kind of like they don't tell you everything about that person's life. And doing the show, you kind of now hear what they've gone through, what they've learned about themselves. And it kind of makes you appreciate everything that's going on in your life and what you've learned from it. When you look at your first season to your last season, What's the biggest thing you learned about yourself?
That's a really great question, man. I don't know. Like that's like, give me a month and I'll come back to you.
I
Um,
tough questions.
but yeah, the thing I learned about myself is probably the biggest thing I learned about myself is that my identity was completely in soccer. That's who I was, right? And so that's who the world saw me as. That's who everybody introduced me as. That's who I saw myself as. So it's a very much performance-based identity. Like, if I'm doing well, um, I'm good, man. I'm good. But if I'm not, like, I suck, and people aren't gonna like me, and you have all that crap. And so, I think I've really just, we get it confused so often. We aren't what we do. And for me, that's like, where do I find my identity? And so I love Jesus. You maybe got that from this, but like, I remember making a decision the year I was traded in 2010 from New England to Colorado. I was new that, so that was going in my fourth year. I made the decision. I said, wow, I'm not going to do this so long. I am going to leverage my platform as much as possible. So I went to Colorado. I met with the communications person. I said, look, sign me up for every single community outing. You don't even have to ask me, just sign me up. I want to be in the community. I want to be meeting people. I want to leverage this unbelievable platform that God has given me. And so I would go around and talk to people and say, like, look, don't put your identity in anything, because at the end of the day, like, no one's going to remember you. Like, in 100 years, think about this, Alex. In 100 years, no one's probably going to remember my name. Maybe my family, or like, but no one's going to be like, oh, Wells Thompson, Wikipedia. Oh my God, he won an MLS Cup. Like, I mean, it really, when you think about it that way, and what I love about speaking, Alex, is that it changes you, like me. It changes me. What's so cool, because we're preaching to ourselves, right? Because all of these things I talk about, I don't have them down. I'm just like a normal human being, where I'm waking up every day. I'm trying to fight the positive with the negative, and let the positive win and the good over the evil. And so the greatest thing I learned is that I'm more than an athlete, man. I've got I am who God says I am, and He loves me so much that He gave His Son for me. And that, we should work hard at whatever we do, but at the end of the day, like, it's really about relationships, what we do for other people, that sort of thing. So it's something I still struggle with, man. Like, I don't watch. That's part of the reason I don't watch soccer, is because I just automatically go back to, oh God.
It's hard for you because you were with your life, and you just don't want to. It doesn't want to be a trigger for you, and then you're like, okay, now what's going to happen? So I totally understand that reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, if you think about society, it's like, it's so stupid, right? Like, I kick a ball into a goal, so like, I'm really great. I mean, like, I'm not giving my life for anybody doing that. Meanwhile, that we have people giving their life for our country. We have teachers, like, teaching kids. Like, that's awesome. And but society has it backward, man. But you have to fight that, and you have to, keep that perspective. And really, for me, it's like, what is success? Is it achieving all my goals? Or like, if Kobe Bryant, man, like, rest in peace, but he said that if I'm not more known for who I am off the court than what I've done on the court, I'm going to be very disappointed. So, like, one of the greatest basketball players to ever play the game is saying, I want to be known for who I am off the court versus on the court. And so, although I sit here and I'll tell you every single day, Alex, that I want to be known more for how I live off the field versus on the field, I don't operate in that mentality a lot, right? Like, and it's getting better with time, because I think that God is healing that, and God wants to take our pain and use it for purpose. And so I'm really passionate about more than an athlete, man. And like, the last thing that any athlete needs to do is shut up and dribble, right? Like, it's so hypocritical. Why does everybody else get to talk about anything political or anything going on in the world, and an athlete can't? And so you see this hypocrisy in the world. And when I retired, I really struggled, man. It was the depression, and I didn't know who I was. I mean, the single thing that I had in my life, constant thing, daily thing that I had in my life, was soccer, from 4 to 31. And then one day you wake up and it's gone. And so you're like, man, what do I do? And so again, it sucked for like 2 years, man, big time. But as I often say, the lessons suck, but they're worth learning. And so I'm thankful that God has taken me through those times, and I'm through the valley and climbing up the mountain again and trying to figure it out. So I've learned a lot though, man. We could go on for days about that one.
Your story, actually, I did an interview with a guy named Warren Furman, who was known for the UK Gladiators, so the UK version of American Gladiators.
Dude, I love that show. I used to watch that. Not the UK version, but the American.
Yeah. So he went by Ace, and he had the similar situation where Gladiators was his life, but then he didn't know what to do after it, and he couldn't watch it because it would make him think that I should be doing that right now without, but the show got canceled. But God was a huge part of his life, and he found himself through all the things that he learned through his religion. And he wanted to get that out there in the public. He wanted to speak. He wanted to do more community outreach. So I kind of see the similarities. And you mentioned like people will not know you from your soccer days. For me, I didn't know you as your soccer days. So I'm learning all of you from now. And I think you're such a great person for what you do. But I enjoy learning what you've learned about yourself from your soccer days.
Yeah.
Luckily, we have YouTube, so I can just go back. But I wanted to get to know the person that's Wells Thompson, and that's why I enjoyed talking about your transition. Where did you go next? What jobs did you look for? What opportunities did you reach out to?
Yeah. Although I think that it's stupid how society views athletes, I think the athletes need to capitalize on that as much as absolutely possible. And the most asked question I got as a pro athlete is, what are you going to do after you're done playing? I always say I don't know, but they would always paint the picture that, don't worry, Wells, everyone loves to hire pro athletes. Well, my wife would probably say I didn't put myself out there enough, but I literally didn't see that. I mean, it was kind of like, well, what kind of experience do you have? And although that I believe that the pro sports is the greatest teacher for life or any sphere of life, and it translates and correlates to business in a billion ways, right? But I couldn't say I have 3 years of accounting. I couldn't say that I have 3 years of sales or any year of sales, right? And so I look back on my career, and that's what I wish I would have done more. Is I wish I would have, it was funny. Me and my wife were laughing the other day because we have 3 kids now, and life's freaking crazy. And so we're like, when we 2011, we were like, what did we do? I don't even know what we did. I mean, as a soccer player, it's not like you're watching hours of football. Like, we went to practice for 3-4 hours a day, and then it was like we went home and we rested. That was what we did, and that was my excuse to like not do anything else. And I'm probably being a little harsh on myself. I mean, I met people, and I did network, and which actually led to my first job after the game. But in 2011, my dad and my wife were really instrumental in helping me create my own soccer company, so Wells Thompson Soccer. And so our off seasons are really short, but I would put a camp on every year in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And then so I tried to continue that a little bit after I'd done playing, but I needed to kind of run away from the game. I needed to figure out who I was outside of the game. So thankfully, man, I got a great job randomly just from networking. I called one of my friends out in Colorado, and he'd just taken the national sales job in Cleveland and was like, hey, do you want to come on board? And I was like, tell me about it. And he told me about it. I was like, heck yeah, man, no one's been giving me anything close to that kind of offer. I'm going to take it. And so I learned a whole bunch, man. But I was traveling 15 days a month. And so I had young kids, and I was like, what is success for you, Wells? Is it making a whole lot of money, or is it being with your family? And so, and you run into parents that have older kids, and they're like, enjoy it while it lasts, and so that's hard, right? But I left that job in January to chase another dream of buying a business, and I started learning a lot about those opportunities and stuff. And so, man, I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know what I want to do. I think that God is actually calling me and leading me back to soccer, which is part of Shift, starting my podcast, the Shift podcast with Jonathan Van Horn and Michael Hood. And God is leading me back to soccer with Soccer Resilience, which is a mental training company that me and Brad Miller, clinical psychologists, have started to help teach youth, like give them the tools to help them in the mental aspect of the game. I mean, I'm a firm believer. And so you'll see on my LinkedIn, I say ultra runner, and I love putting that on there because I believe it says a lot about who I am. And so I believe that life is really 10% what happens to you, 90% how you deal with it. And so, that convicts me every single day to just really respond well to the things that come your way. And, life is hard, and we go through a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles. And so I think those types of things, death, just really hard life things bring you back and ground you to, okay, what am I living for? Like I'm 36, man. What's the average age of a male in America? It's probably like 72, 76, something like that. So I could be halfway done, man. And the other thing about it, I could die tonight. I could die tomorrow. And so that's really, really hard, right? Like we need to set goals. We need to chase our dreams and go after it. But I do some writing. So check out Wells Thompson Soccer. I do a little bit of writing. But my latest blog was "The Journey is the Destination." A man much smarter than me told me that. It was my dad. And it goes back to like achieving those goals. Like I want to buy a business now. But if I don't enjoy the process, man, what the heck is the point? Mm-hmm. And so that's really, really hard to do, but something that I try to remind myself of.
You mentioned how you didn't want to do anything with soccer, and now you've taken some time away from it, and now you're kind of getting back into it, but you're not doing it in a athletic type of way. Is that still getting that craving of soccer for you, and it's doing its job, and where you're not like, I'm talking about it, I'm helping other people, but I don't need to get out on the field?
Yeah, so I do a little bit of training. So I actually only have one client now. His name's Henry. It's kind of a special case. Henry, if you're listening, he actually just broke his arm in 2 places. So we haven't trained in a little bit, but I'm always in the yard with my kids. Like soccer balls are all over our house. So I'm like, come on, let's go play. Like I'll teach you something. And I'm like, they're like, no, Daddy, get away from me. And I'm like, guys, I know a little something. Come on, let me help you. And so I just realized I find it really hard to believe that God doesn't have a plan for soccer in my life because of how much has been a part of my life. And again, going back to one of the things I said earlier in the podcast, like I think we go through things not just for ourselves, but for other people. And so, I mean, you think about how instrumental coaches are in kids and people's lives. And so I just really want to use my experience, my expertise to give back and to help and to love kids and to, challenge them to, growing up, you hear all the pro athletes say, hey, don't forget about your books, like study. And I'm like, why would I do that? Like, I just want to play soccer. And now I'm like, oh my God, I know what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to remind the kids, like figure out what you care about, like find hobbies, like learn, right? Like that's a great thing. Like, did you know there's a big world out there outside of soccer? Well, I'm just figuring that out. So
some people take it, it's a slow path, or some people realize it quickly. As long as people are getting to their goal, doesn't matter how long it takes. When you were getting the opportunity to do the podcast as a fellow podcaster, what has been the greatest part about doing it?
Well, like what you said earlier really resonated. I think you stole it from us. I'm kidding.
You stole it from me.
Probably. We all have a story, right? And I think that, and I've always been really open with who I am and my story. And so I remember like when I got out of school up in New York, I'd talk about it. And as a pro, something I talk about a lot. My mom, and she hated it when I was like, Mom, this is me. This is who I am, right? And I think that the more we can become who we are and who God's created us to be, and we own our past, right? You talked about that. Like we own our shortcomings and our weaknesses, because people resonate with those so much more than they do your MLS championships or anything you're good at, right? And so what was the question again? See, I lost it.
What's like the best part about being a podcaster?
Oh, the podcast. See, I was going to.
You're good. No, you're good.
It's the story. Yeah, the story. We all got a story. So hearing people's stories. I mean, Michael O'Hood was taken out of Sierra Leone when he's 6 years old and coming to America. He flew in a plane by himself and met his mom in the airport, and he had never talked to her.
Wow.
Before that. Like it wasn't meet up. They just met up. And then a buddy of mine, O.G. Johnson, the head wrestling coach at UNC Pembroke from Liberia, war-torn, seen death, like ate rats to survive with his family. And, our lives and our stories and things we go through are again, not just for us, but for other people. And we should share those stories with other people because we realize that like we're not alone. And I think oftentimes like we think we are, but when we hear, and that's why we relate to other people's struggles more, because when we hear other people struggling with the same things that we do, we're like, oh God, that makes me feel a little bit better. Like I'm not as screwed up as I think I am. Mm-hmm. And just one caveat here is like, there's a lot of stories being told. So we're telling a story to the world, right? We're telling it, but I think the greatest story we're telling is the one we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. So as an athlete, am I saying I'm an idiot? I'm dumb because I'm not focusing on school? Or is it, I'm not focusing, I need to put a little more time here. I'm actually really smart. God's giving me a brain. Right. And so what are we telling ourselves? Are we telling ourselves I suck? I suck. Or is it, man, I'll get it next time. Or, yeah, I screwed up. Grace, show each other grace. Nobody's perfect, right? Let's move on. Let's get better next time and learn from it, like you said. So it's just meeting people, man, because life's about relationships, right?
Yep, definitely. Networking. I mean, I was furloughed with my job for during this pandemic, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of was like, okay, I got 2 months. I can't just sit at my house all day. And this podcast was always a dream, and it's been the best experience, and the best part is my work supports me in doing it. They let me do it at the same time, and I never thought I would have ever be able to talk to the people I have and network with them. It's kind of like I view myself as I'm a no one. I'm a nobody. I'm just an average person from Missouri, just living his life. But being able to talk to a former MLS player and other people, it's just been rewarding. And it's kind of like, I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful that I'm not grateful for the things that happened, but it's
no, I know what you're saying, man. Yeah. I mean, there's, it's perspective. Again, obviously COVID sucks. A lot of people have been hurt, but there's good things that are coming out of it. And we don't wish that on anyone, right? But like, what are we going to do? How are we going to adapt? How are we going to keep moving? I mean, the one thing that I'm thinking, which I think I know you're thinking too, man, is why didn't I do that 3 years ago, right? Like, I started 3 years ago.
I have that regret. I'm like, I could have done this a long time ago, but it's like, the timing wasn't right for me. I was in college, and like, I got to focus on study, making sure you're doing good on classes. I was focused on at the time.
Yeah, dude, I did a podcast. God, his name's escaping me, but like, I think he was 11 or 12. Wow. He might have been 12 or 13, but a 12 or 13-year-old kid. And he does like, he interviews everybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, dude, man, I wish I was like you when I was that. That is freaking awesome.
I was too busy watching TV at
11. yeah, video games or something.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for Wells Thompson? What's some goals you have going on that you're trying to accomplish, or what does the future look like for you?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was hoping that you could tell me, but
I mean, if you want a list, I don't know if you're gonna like them, but
whatever it is, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be hard. Right now, currently, what's a tangible goal is I'm trying to buy a business, right? So I'm trying to buy a business. I'm starting a couple others, and focused on the Shift podcast. So I hope that grows and we're able to impact more people. I think the goal for me on an individual basis all the time is to one of the most humbling things in the world is being a husband and a dad. And so it's hard, man. It's really, really hard. And so I'm trying to be the best husband I can be. I'm trying to be the best dad I can be, and just love my kids well and enjoy the time and not get so focused on the goals. But I do have goals. I mean, I want to buy a business first, one, and then several more after that. I just enjoy having my hands involved in a lot of things. I want to continue to just use my platform, but yeah, man, I'm see where God leads, man. It's going to be good, whatever it is.
Yeah. For someone who wants to be an MLS player, what tips or advice would you give them to rise to the challenge in that industry? Something that you've learned that you may wish you've done during those times.
That's a good question. I do like to throw this out there. My cell phone number is 336-575-3324. Put this in the show notes, bro. And the reason I say that is because, success leaves clues. And so find people that are older, that are brighter, that are smarter than you, and say, hey man, how do I do this? Can you help me out a little bit? And so I'm always one of the, like, I throw it out there all the time, and you think kind of people will call you. I know I'm a goofball and not that cool, but like, call me. I'll help you out. I'll tell you what you need to do. At the end of the day, I believe that God has got a plan for all of us, but, dream and believe. And just listen to my story, right? Like, people told me I would never make it, over and over and over and over and over again. And so I think the thing that I would tell people is to like surround yourself with really good people that love you, people that believe in you, people that are going to push you to become a better version of yourself each and every day, and focus on the process. So what I mean by that is, yes, have that goal, right? I want to be an MLS player, but just essentially try to be better than you were yesterday. Like, wake up and work really, really hard. Don't just say I work hard, or like say I'm gonna be the hardest worker. Like, actually put the work in, put the practice in, and don't focus on the outcomes, but focus on the smart work that you do. And you think about that, like Kobe Bryant talks about this, that compounded effect over 2, 5, 10 years is astronomical. Right. But we think, especially in this day and age with social media and stuff, we can go on, we have access to so many people's lives. We want a shortcut, and there aren't shortcuts to success, man. You have to grind it out. You have to put the work in. You have to sacrifice. Man, it's just so hard to put. You asked me for one single thing. I just gave you like 50.
You're good.
It's so hard to do that, but call me. I'd love to help you in any way I can if you're trying to be a pro soccer player, and I'll tell you the truth, and I'll push you to believe in yourself and that sort of thing. So
now, going back to an earlier thing you mentioned, when you said something, if someone called you and you'd be like, do I do my to-do list, or do I answer that phone call?
Yeah.
I'm going to test you on that. I was going to answer my phone call now.
Yeah. But leave a message though if I don't pick up, because sometimes I don't pick up unknown callers. But seriously, leave a message or email me and all that sort of thing. I'm not big into Facebook, but I am on LinkedIn, and I'm not big into social media, but I am on LinkedIn and Facebook, so you can check me out there.
The last question, and it's probably the hardest one.
Ooh, bring it.
For someone that's listening to this interview, no matter what they're going through, whatever they're going through in their life, what tips or advice would you give them to rise to their challenge, overcome obstacles, and accomplish their goals?
So I would say that God loves you. I would say that God loves you regardless of anything you've ever done. And there's actually nothing that you can do for him to love you any more or any less. That he loves you so much, he gave his son for you, and that it's going to be okay. Right. I believe that God has a plan for each and every one of us, and you're going to get through it. And, just knowing that I struggle on a daily basis with so much stuff, I don't have it figured out. And I think as young kids, you think you have to have it figured out. And so when you really realize that you don't have to have all the answers, that it's okay not to know, that it's okay to doubt and to struggle and to question, like, it's a freeing day. Mm-hmm. And so, they say, there's a saying in AA that says one day at a time. Just take it one day at a time, fight that day, and then wake up, fight the next day, and do that for the rest of your life, because you're going to be okay.
It kind of goes back to what you said, growing up fast. And nowadays, you have to take it one day at a time. You can't think about what's going to happen months in advance. If you do, that's good, but you never know what the next day or the next hour is going to bring you. It could change your path and take you in a totally different direction.
You're a cool dude, Alex. You're not just a normal nobody, man. Like, you're a cool dude, man. This is awesome.
Well, Wells, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. I've enjoyed so much learning about you and learning about your journey, and I can't wait to see what's next for you and continue the connection on LinkedIn and wherever.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. This has been awesome. Thanks for having me.